we were also receiving text messages from people in town saying the same thing, that she was doing that, but our reaction was to ask her about it, and she kind of played it down like it wasn't a big deal.
Yeah, we were shocked, but she really downplayed it. Like, no, that's not really a big deal to me. I just like doing stuff like that. So she didn't come to us hardcore and say, this is what I'm doing, this is what I want to do. She really downplayed it. She's really struggled with bullying since about, maybe third grade. That would lend to self-esteem, self-worth, and how you feel about yourself. And, she's always just really, really struggled with fitting in at school, and she wants so bad to fit in, but she's a great kid, super smart, but she's the kid that's always been in math club and not like the cheerleader type.
Right. Yeah, she's done very well in school, self-taught herself, guitar. She's just a very intelligent little girl.
My name is Todd Kolstad. I'm a father, husband, and business owner. I was born in Glasgow, Montana, and have lived in Montana much of my life. I have 5 children from a previous marriage. One was over 18, one chose to live with his birth mother in Canada, and I had custody of the other 3. I'm also a United States Air Force veteran, having served during the Gulf War with the 12th Tactical Fighter Squadron based in Okinawa, Japan. Our hope by releasing this statement is to help other families avoid the heartache and pain that our family has endured over the last 5 months. Our 14-year-old daughter has struggled for quite some time in school from bullying. We have had many meetings over the years with the school systems trying to address these issues. We even moved from Flathead County in West Montana to a much smaller town in Valley County in East Montana, hoping that this will give our daughter a fresh start in a new school system and new environment. On August 18th, 2023, we received a call at 1:48 from our local city police. We were informed that our 14-year-old daughter was texting a friend that she had met at a school track meet saying she wanted to kill herself. It should be noted our daughter had only met this child once face-to-face several months prior and had only phone conversations with her ever since. We took this threat seriously and spoke to our daughter. However, we knew she was struggling with anxiety since school was about to start on Monday. She was also very angry with us because we told her she needed to put her 2-week notice in at her summer job so she could focus on starting the 9th grade. At 7:40 p.m., a lady by the name of Cindy from Child Protective Services showed up at our home, saying that the police officer that called earlier said he could not lay eyes on the child or make contact with her directly, even though this officer never asked to come to our home or speak to our daughter. We allowed Cindy into our home, showing her around. My wife was making dinner as we had a late lunch. It's noted in the CPS report that our home was clean, well-stocked with food, and with no immediate dangers. Cindy stated she wanted to speak to our daughter alone. We allowed this given we knew our daughter was safe, but we also know our daughter has had issues with telling lies for quite some time, and as such, we made Cindy aware of that concern. We allowed them to speak on the porch, also calling a family friend to come to our house as a third-party witness. After about 10 minutes, my wife and I went outside to be told our daughter had drank toilet bowl cleaner at about 3 p.m. and had also taken an ibuprofen overdose in an attempt to take her life. We could not believe this, as my wife had been working in the kitchen in her makeshift office all day where pills and cleaning agents were kept. Neither of us saw our daughter go in there, but out of concern for her safety, we agreed she needed to go to the hospital. She also did not have any signs of ingesting any harsh chemicals, such as a burnt mouth, burnt esophagus, or an upset stomach. We later found out she did not have any ibuprofen or any other chemicals in her system from a blood test taken at the hospital that night. Once at the hospital, our daughter began demanding that she be called Leo, he, and him. We explained that this is in her history, but not something we would agree to as her parents. The hospital staff ignored our request, as did Child Protective Services. Our daughter was admitted to the hospital for observations. My wife was mostly at the hospital over the next 5 days, and here are some of the events that transpired.
My name is Krista Kolstad, and I've been in my daughter's life since she was about 7 years old when I married Todd in 2017. She's Todd's youngest child and has always resided with us as a family. Over the years, I've built a loving, supporting relationship with our daughter. She's always referred to me as Mom, even though she's not my biological child. I've always loved her, supported her, and made sacrifices for her. The following is a list of events that happened at the hospital, causing us to voice our concern to hospital management and staff, as well as Cindy from CPS. The hospital continued to call our daughter Leo, even though she's a minor, and after I stated it's against our wishes, our religion, and our core family values. The hospital told me to call their lawyer if I have an issue, as they will do what the patient tells them. I said to them, according to State Bill 99, they may not, under the law, provide transgender care nor transition our child. The response was, they are not providing surgery or hormones, so they are operating in the gray area of the law. I further explained that my understanding of the law was a minor is a minor, and there's no difference between a 4-year-old or a 14-year-old, and we prefer she be called by her birth name. The hospital put our daughter on a 24-hour supervision because this was a suicide threat. The hospital placed an aide outside her door who began talking about having top surgery and how she identified as non-binary. I objected and reported as inappropriate to the doctor on duty. At that point, I was told, why are you not more concerned that your daughter's trying to harm herself than what the aide is talking about? We had never been in a situation like this before and continued to remind everyone that we wanted what was best for our daughter and only wanted her mental health needs met. The following incidents also happened at the hospital that I told both Cindy and the doctor on duty I was very unhappy about. An RN rolled her eyes and referred to me as just the stepmom. Then, when I asked the nurse to call our daughter by her given name, she sighed loudly and rolled her eyes again. When lunch came, I suggested to our daughter she eat something healthy on her tray. The RN looked at me and yelled in the hallway, "Get this young man a banana split dessert." As time went on, many of the CNAs began to refer to me as just the stepmom, and continued to roll their eyes at me whenever I spoke or asked any questions regarding my child's care. A pregnant aide sat watch for our daughter several times, and each time she told me I should be more respectful of her wishes to be referred to as a male and be called Leo. We felt this was undermining her parental rights as she said this in front of our child each time. On Sunday, August 20th, when I arrived at the hospital, the vice president of the hospital was stationed outside of our daughter's room. I later found out he was the vice president of human resources, not the entire hospital. When I expressed concern that our daughter was being given everything she wants and that they are reinforcing her bad behavior, example, there was no school, meals were cooked whenever she wanted, whatever she wanted to order, there was no bedtime, and she was allowed to watch all the TV she wanted, the doctor on duty again told me I need to be more concerned about my daughter trying to hurt herself and not what she's eating or watching on TV. When I asked that all the staff only call our daughter by her birth name and please not to use any nicknames, the hospital staff continued to roll their eyes at me and tell me I needed to respect our daughter's wishes. Again, this was undermining our parental authority in front of my daughter. When I said anything someone did not like or disagreed with, I was told, why are you not more concerned about your daughter's mental health? Our daughter was allowed to make phone calls to friends, including the young lady she told she was going to kill herself to. When I expressed my concerns that she's a minor and that her father and I need to be asked if she can call anyone except family, I was told, we'll do what makes our patient comfortable. I had very open communication with the hospital as well as Cindy from CPS. My husband and I let them know we agreed our daughter needed to go to an inpatient facility and counseling. We were told there may be a facility in Wyoming. I explained we had concerns with Wyoming, and it was our understanding that Wyoming has no laws against minors being given hormones or surgery without parental consent. We stated this as soon as Wyoming was brought up in our daughter's hospital room on August 19th. We had looked online on our phones to see what laws were in Wyoming regarding transgender care. Cindy from CPS said to us, well, I'm sure we will find a Montana facility, so this isn't an issue, and we can talk more about Wyoming if we have to cross that bridge. Cindy and the on-duty doctor agreed we would try to find a Montana facility. We expressed we preferred Billings as we currently go there often for medical care, but we were open to any of the 6 Montana facilities that treat children. On the night of August 22nd, 2023, we received a phone call from the hospital saying a bed had opened up in Wyoming and our daughter needed to go. We were confused because early in the day we were told she was next in line for a bed in Billings. My husband and I were not told the name of the facility, only that we had to accept the bed. We stated we had some concerns regarding Wyoming state laws and how they were different than Montana state laws, and further questions we needed answered before agreeing to Wyoming. Within 15 minutes, Cindy from CPS showed up at our house with the police, serving us with papers removing our daughter from our care, stating we were refusing treatment. This is untrue. We simply asked that she stay in the state of Montana and wanted our questions answered by anyone in the system before agreeing to move her to Wyoming. We were told we were not allowed to see or speak to our daughter at that time. Child Protective Services could have avoided this incident by simply communicating with us regarding the out-of-state procedures for a minor going to a care facility. The reason stated for her removal was parents are unable or refusing to provide medical care. I met with Child Protective Services on Friday, August 25th in their office and provided 6 years worth of medical records and insurance information, proving their reason is an untrue statement. On Wednesday, August 23rd, our daughter was transported out of state by a CPS worker to the Wyoming facility. Court dates were set into motion and we were assigned public defenders at that time. She was allowed to text her sister, but also call people who were not part of her family from the staff person's cell phone. She was also allowed to stop at her summer job and speak to her friends, stating she was being taken away to Wyoming because she was crazy and was trying to kill herself. This was a huge lapse in judgment on CPS and a miscarriage of law to our daughter, who is only 14 years old. What if, when she's older, this incident is behind her and she's in a good place mentally? This is a very small town that we live in, and we may have just branded her as the child who went crazy and tried to kill herself. Also concerning is that her mental state had deteriorated to the point of her needing inpatient care, but yet she was allowed to go in public and visit with her friends. While at our local hospital, our daughter was not given surgery or hormones, but she was allowed to have men's products against our wishes, was allowed to make calls sharing her health information, and be called names other than her birth name. By placing an aide outside her door who kept talking about top surgery and being non-binary, and by other aides belittling us as her parents, the hospital care staff contributed to the further decline in our daughter's mental health and caused the breakdown of our family unit. Our daughter spent about a month in Wyoming in an inpatient facility. On Monday, September 25th, she was transferred to a group home in Billings, Montana for further medical care until she's mentally stable. Since August, we have been in a legal custody battle with Child Protective Services. Our public defenders have advised us to just play nice and go along with Child Protective Services recommendations and allow our daughters to remain in the group home setting without causing any fights. We have followed their advice for the last few months, and now our rights are being completely stripped away, as on this Friday, January 19th, we are set to lose custody of our daughter because allowing her to be transgender is in her therapeutic interest, and we are not following recommended therapy. We have endured false accusations from Child Protective Services that my husband is an alcoholic who drinks daily, that I am verbally abusive to our daughter. It should be noted that none of these incidents have been proven. We have no criminal records, nor were there any witnesses who have seen us fighting, being drunks, or being abusive in any way to the 3 children that we have had in our parental care. We have provided character witness letters as well as statements from an employee who lived in our home last summer who have never seen or witnessed any of this adverse behavior.
Since our daughter has been in the group home setting, we have had numerous meetings regarding our wishes for her not to be referred to as a boy. Our wishes are for the program to be therapy-based and allow our family unit to continue to have the right to parent our daughter as we see fit to maintain her care. Our daughter is only referred to there as Leo, he, and him. She has been allowed to shave her head, wears only men's clothes, wears a chest binder, and uses men's hygiene products. She attends a therapeutic school program and is in all boy groups. She has been allowed to attend a church that no one will name. She has had numerous doctor appointments for birth control therapy, so she no longer has a menstrual cycle. One of her daily goals set by the group home therapist is, I will accept and embrace my chosen gender 80% of the time. This is transgendering our child against our wishes. Our rights have been so stripped and limited that we're not even allowed to know what dentist she recently saw. She was given some flu shots without our consent. Child Protective Services continues to say, oh, so sorry, it was an oversight, you were not told. When we ask questions, we are labeled as difficult to work with, when all we want to know is what medical treatment is being provided and by what doctors, what medication she's being given, as well as weekly updates, daily if there's an issue. On December 4th, 2023, we had a court date. The judge told us we could look for another placement for our daughter that was more in line with our religious beliefs and our core values. This is an impossible task, as there's no programs that take private insurance, so our choices have been to remortgage our home to pay for a program or accept that she must stay where she is. I love my daughter. She's my youngest. I love her unconditionally and only want her to refrain from making any decisions until she has the maturity and life experiences to understand what the consequences are for her actions. We have asked that treatment explore why someone would dislike themselves so much that they would want to change their entire being. Why are we not looking at the past trauma and losses that this young lady has seen in her life?
Todd and I love our daughter beyond words. We are not naive and understand that we have an adolescent girl who has struggled with mental health issues most of her life on our hands. The system has not helped our daughter. Instead, the system has taught her how to weaponize the system itself to receive what she wants. We do not believe the system has tried to treat her mental health issues, instead has forcefully focused on the transgender component and on forcing us into doing things against our family values, religious beliefs, and core moral beliefs. Much damage has already been done to our family. How many families will the system destroy? Is the state of Montana willing to open the door and take every troubled child who is angry with their parents, placing them in group home settings, and violating their rights as caregivers, providers, parents, and morally diminishing and destroying our family units? Our next court date is Friday, January 19th, at which time the court has already decided to remove our parental rights and transfer our daughter to her birth mom, who has been an absent parent for the past 7 years and resides in the country of Canada. This is a medical kidnapping, and this needs to stop. We currently only have a public defender whose advice has been to play nice. We sincerely hope that this brings awareness to the destructive transitioning issue and keeps another family from being destroyed. Our hope is that our daughter, who we love very much, does not become a statistic or just another victim of the existing care system. You can reach us at our email, which is krista.and.toddkolstad@gmail.com.
Use an app, I believe it was called Custodio, to limit her where she's allowed to go on the internet with her computer and her phone, and to limit who she can talk to and stuff like that. But she's super, super smart, and she found a loophole. And then I found out that she was on Reddit, in these transgender communities talking to other people. We finally, found a community where she was liked and they were telling her how great and how important she was. Unfortunately, it's a community that was preying on her. Realize, we're not naive, and we realize that we've had a teen on our hands that's got some issues, and we were helping to work through those issues the best we could via counseling and things like that. So we weren't turning a blind eye to it or anything. We acknowledged that she felt that way, and we explained why, we didn't agree with it, and it's not something we were okay with. And we agreed that counseling would be a good start to work this out.
It wasn't a daily problem that we're dealing with every single day. It was very rare, like years apart.
We've always allowed her pick out her own clothes. And the way that we've done that is we let her put the clothes in the Amazon cart. And then we look at them and say, is that an okay shirt? Or, no, you shouldn't have that. And then we'll buy them for her. So she's always been a jeans and T-shirt kid. She's never been into dresses and fancy shoes or anything. She's just a normal tomboy kid.
Multiple people were confronting us about it. Some of them were flat out saying, we met your son at church today.
But they weren't really affirming her. I think people were kind of like, what do we do with this?
Confused.
Like, this kid is saying this, and how do you even, nobody really knows how to approach it. It's so new, and especially in the little area that we are in. So no, they were not going behind our backs and affirming or anything like that.
No, the church was fantastic. So the counselors there, the faculty, all of them were just great. So
August 18th, which was a Friday of 2023, we had received a call from our local police department saying that our daughter had ingested, at that point they said she was making threats with another child to take her life.
Wow.
And it's important to realize that she was mad at us that day. There was a whole thing where we explained to her that she had to quit her summer job because school was getting ready to start. And so she was pretty mad at us. And so this was what we viewed as her acting out and trying to get attention from another child. And so at 1:48 p.m., the local police officer called, and I was on the phone with him, and I stayed on the phone with him so that he could hear. And I walked back and I talked to our daughter, and, I said, hey, what's going on? We're getting this report, blah, blah, blah. We kind of had a conversation. And I reassured the officer that I don't believe she was coming through on any of these threats and that these threats were real, but we would definitely be watching her and making sure that she was safe. And if we felt we needed to, we would call the police or transport her to the hospital if anything that we felt was strange or, that she was maybe going to go through with these threats. That was in the afternoon. And so then at about 7:40 p.m. that evening is when Children's Services showed up at our door because they said the police officer could not speak to the child directly or lay eyes on her, even though he had never asked to do those things. He never came to our house. It was a simple phone call. So we let her in the house and we gave her a tour of the house, and we were kind of taken aback because we'd never been in that position. We didn't know what are you supposed to do? What do you expect? Yeah. So I actually showed her every room of our house, even like our bedroom and our bathroom. I was like, well, this is, yeah. And then I showed her all the food in the freezers and stuff, and how well stocked our house was with food. I was happy. I was making dinner at that point because we'd had a really late lunch that day because we'd been working outside. And from there, she said, "Okay, well, we need to talk to your daughter, and I want to talk to her alone." And I was like, okay. So they went and spoke on the porch for about 10 minutes alone. And then Todd and I were kind of like, we're not real comfortable with this. So we went outside, and that's when we were told that she had ingested toilet bowl cleaner and possibly some kind of painkiller like ibuprofen or Tylenol and earlier in the day. So that is what was told to us. So we agreed then with Children's Services that she needed to go to the hospital and get checked, even though we were like, I know she didn't do that, but let's go get checked just for safety concerns. They had said that she reported she had taken these pills and this cleaner at about 3 p.m. Well, now it's after 8. And like you said, there were no signs of ingesting any kind of chemical, no, throat burn, no sickness, no nothing. She was actually out in the yard playing with a dog like an hour before that. So she was jumping around with the dog. I knew it hadn't happened, but I was like, absolutely, let's get this checked just for safety issues. She said, well, do you guys want to transport her? And I'll come to the ER also because I have to follow up. And we were like, okay, that's fine. We don't have a problem with you following up. Obviously, we're taking this seriously. Not an issue. So we got to the emergency room that evening, and they did some blood work on her, which we didn't see for another day or so. And then, they talked about how if this is a suicide threat, somebody has to be admitted for 72 hours and watch to see what's going on. Like, why do you feel this way? Do we need to step in with treatment or anything like that? So we agreed that she needed to be admitted, and we were fine with that. And so then the next day is really when the problem started, that Saturday, the 19th, when she was put in a private room, and then there were people stationed outside her room all the time to watch her. So that's really when the issue started.
Yes.
We were there through late in the night, and then when they told us that she was going to be admitted, we went home that Friday night. So then the next day, which was Saturday, I did go, and I spent every day I would spend 4, 5, 6 hours at the hospital, just so, even though I knew she was really mad at us, but I wanted to make a point to her that we're your parents and we're not going to go away. No matter what's going on, we're going to be there for you. And that's why I spent so much time at the hospital. Almost
immediately, there was talk from our daughter and from doctors or medical staff talking about Wyoming. And it was so much that we thought, okay, let's take a look at what's special about Casper, Wyoming. And it was what we saw on the maps was Montana, North and South Dakota, Idaho. They all have laws banning gender care and transitioning a child without parental approval. Wyoming does not have those laws in place, and that's where she wanted to go, and that's what they were talking about sending her.
Well, and also right from the get-go, the minute I got there on that Saturday morning, I was confronted with an aide who was calling her Leo and he, him. And I was like, hey, that's not a birth name. We're not okay with that. This is not what we're here for. And immediately they started kind of chastising Todd and I as parents, like, oh, well, you need to respect what she wants. She wants to be called Leo, and that's what we're going to do.
He was probably saying, they were probably saying he.
Yeah, they were saying he. And so right from the get-go, there was problems. And I explained to the nurses on duty that I was unhappy and that according to Bill 99, which I'm still a little confused about Bill 99 if it ever went into effect or not. But at the time, I thought it was in effect. And I said, according to Bill 99, these are not things that you're allowed to do. And they said it was a gray area, that they weren't giving her puberty blockers or hormones. And so they were allowed to address her as a male and they were giving her male products to use, body wash and deodorant and things like that. At church, she had told some people that she wanted to be called Leo and he, him. And so it was brought to our attention through the church about a year and a half ago or so. And so at that point, we had a discussion with her about, why do you feel this way? Could you feel this way because maybe there's some past issues in your life that you're trying to resolve, which is normal. Everybody has that.
We were staying completely respectful and kind to the doctors. It wasn't confrontational anyway, but they were being just the opposite, completely the opposite.
And so some of the things that happened at the hospital that were alarming were, the aide that was outside the door that was talking about how she identified as non-binary and she herself was going to go to a different city in Montana and get top surgery. So that was alarming. And
it was in front of our daughter. Yeah. She was right there between. So our daughter was in the middle of us and that person.
Yeah, so the aide was sitting outside the door and we were sitting like on the other side of the room. And then our daughter was in the bed in the middle. And so she was having these conversations and saying these things. And we just were like, hey, we don't need to know that much about your personal life. We're good. We don't. And so I don't know if she was trying to convince us that was okay, or if she was just kind of bragging like, well, I do these things on my own. Like, I'm not sure what her point was. So, like, there was a nurse that was stationed outside the door and a tray of food had come. And when I mentioned to our daughter, you should eat something healthy on your tray, because they were kind of, she was eating whatever she wanted. And that's like, she was getting things like, oh, I want rice and a milkshake. And I'm like, well, there's no value nutritionally in that. And so we were aware of like what she was eating and things like that. So there was one day when lunch came and I said to her, you should eat something healthy on your tray. And the nurse, she was an RN, she was at the door and she just kind of rolled her eyes at me and did one of those. And then she screamed down the hallway, get this young man a banana split dessert. So things like that were happening constantly. Our rights and as parents and our authority as parents were being constantly undermined the entire time she was in the hospital.
And just a couple of days of her being there, the effects were loud and clear. We saw a whole new side of her. It was like that enabled her and it built her confidence in it.
Yep.
And she turned into something entirely different. So by the time she had been there 3 or 4 days, she was not even the same child at all, not even a trace.
And Children's Services was involved this entire time. So we were telling everybody that we're not okay with this. This is not okay. The doctor on duty as well as Children's Services. And Children's Services was like, well, I understand why you're upset and things like that. But at that point, we weren't, because we knew 3-day hold. And then after that, they said, well, she's still having these feelings of suicide, even though her blood work had come back and there was no pills or clean or anything in her blood work. And so they had suggested that she go to acute psychiatric care and inpatient counseling to help her through this episode. And Todd and I absolutely agreed with that.
Yes.
Okay. We were like, sure, whatever needs to be done to help her, we're 100% on board. So that's when things started kicking off. Like, we were told there were 6 facilities in the state of Montana, and we expressed that we would prefer Billings because that's where we went often for medical already, and it would be convenient. We understood with 6 facilities, you should be able to find some place for her to stay. And that's when they kept bringing up Wyoming over and over again.
We were saying it was how they were saying it. There was always glances towards our daughter when there was affirming glances, like, even though we're telling your parents that there's going to be a bed in Billings, we're just saying that to them. You're going to Wyoming. That's kind of what the glances said to us.
And it's important to note that as soon as Wyoming was brought up, we researched what the laws were in Wyoming because we had been so disrespected as parents up to that point. We didn't trust the hospital or CPS or anybody involved. And so we, in the very room, when Wyoming was brought up, we brought it up on our phones and we said, it looks to us like Wyoming doesn't have the same laws that Montana has. And how would we be protected? Who's protecting our daughter? What is this going to look like? How would this work? And our CPS worker, I'll never forget her answer. She said, well, chances of Wyoming are really, really slim, and she's most likely just going to be in Montana. So we'll all cross that bridge together when we come to it. It's not going to be an issue.
Yeah, that was what she said.
So then on the evening of August 22nd, when I left the hospital that day, we were told she was next in line for a bed in Billings. So we were like, okay, maybe a day or so and she'll be going down to Billings, and we're totally fine with that. So later on that evening, it was between 7:30 and 8, we got a call from the hospital saying that this bed had opened up in Wyoming and that she had to go. So we weren't, at that point, we didn't even know the name of the facility. We weren't told the name of the facility. We weren't told what are our rights. How does that work if a child goes out of state? Once you requested that they stay in Montana, we had all these questions and concerns and we wanted them answered. And we were like, okay, well, who can we talk to? Who needs to be involved in this to help us and answer our questions and clarify these things? And we were basically told, she's not doing any good here in the hospital. She has to go to Wyoming, period. Are you refusing the bed? And we said, we want our questions answered. We were very firm on that. And so they, within 10 minutes then, they showed up at our home, removing our daughter from our care, saying that we were unable or unwilling to provide medical care when that's not the truth at all.
Yeah, they simply would not answer any questions about what our rights were. Could she be transitioned without our approval, like we read online? They would answer nothing.
Well, it was crushing. I mean, and you don't know who do you turn to, who do you talk to, who can help you, all these things, and you realize that things are escalating quickly and it's way out of your control, and nobody will answer your questions. So it was very disheartening and very upsetting.
Yeah.
And this 23rd, she was transported to Wyoming by a CPS worker, and part of our concerns on that transport were, even though they said you're not allowed to talk to her, you're not allowed to see her before she goes, they allowed her to go and go to her summer job and tell her friends and visit with her friends about all kinds of things regarding her personal life. And so we were upset about that. Where we're at, it's very, very small, and I don't care about what people think about us, but our main goal is to protect her and her mental health and her privacy.
Yes, she was allowed to make phone calls to whoever, say that she was suicidal, say that she was transgender. She was telling a lot of people this. And so we weren't sure if that was a HIPAA violation or not. Nobody told us anything.
She went to Wyoming and she was in that facility for about a month. And we had a few phone calls while she was in Wyoming. Nothing really eventful. But again, they were socially transitioning her and affirming her. So she was allowed to go by different names. She was allowed to have men's products. She was allowed to live as a boy in this facility in Wyoming, even though the whole time we're like, hey, we're not okay with this. This goes against our wishes. This goes against our beliefs. We were told pretty much, well, we do what the patient wants. None of our wishes were respected or upheld or anything. So then at that point, after about a month in the acute psychiatric unit in Wyoming, she was transferred to a group home in Billings, Montana. And things have just never, again, we've constantly said, we don't want this to happen. You're socially transitioning her. We're not okay with this. And none of our wishes have been respected. She's allowed to have a chest binder. She was allowed to shave her head. She's allowed to wear all men's clothes. She's in a therapeutic school setting, and she's allowed to be in the boys' groups in that school setting and present herself as a boy also in that setting.
We have court-appointed attorneys on it, and they put a gag order on us, making it even tougher to fight this. They totally disable the parents' ability to fight for their parental rights, their freedom of speech and religion. It's all thrown right out. So without being able to reach out to the press and online, there's no way to find anybody to help. We have a lawyer in place that's challenging the gag order, but I can't really comment on legal stuff because I'm not a lawyer and I don't understand the ins and outs of it. But what's been happening effectively is she's been socially transitioned against our wishes. And at this point, our family unit is destroyed. I mean, how do you bring someone back when you say she's been allowed to live as a boy for the last 6 months or so? And we were like, no, we're not doing that here. I mean, how do you come back from that? So there's that issue. And then there's the issue that on the 19th, we had a court hearing where Children's Services wanted out of the case. So they wanted to place with the birth mother in Canada and then just have the case dismissed and step out of it, because they said, they certainly don't want to violate our views and they don't really know what to do, but this is a new situation. And the judge ruled that they could not step out, but they would have temporary custody for up to 6 months, and that they would place with the birth mother in Canada, which is another one of our fears that we're having right now. Yeah, and in order to do that, there's a form that we're required to sign that says we agree that we may never see her again forever. So yeah, she's lost her grandparents, her cousins, her whole family is pretty much removed. Her sister is a sister Tara that really loves her, and they've already court ordered, or CPS has ordered, that there's no contact there either. So it's amazing.
She's effectively cut off of our family unit, all of her cousins, her aunts and uncles, her grandparents, all of that. Yeah. And it's concerning to us because there is a history of the children that we had in our care saying that, this was an abusive situation when the birth mother was involved. And I've given that document to CPS, all of those documents, and their attitude is, well, that's not really what's going on now. That might have been in the past, so we're not going to worry about it. So we do have some concerns that are legitimate about Canada. We also have some concerns, there's a form that Canadian immigration wants you to sign that says you agree that you may be permanently separated from your child and never see them again. So in a sense, they're asking us to sign away our rights and say that we'll never talk to her or see her again if she goes to Canada.
Knew that was coming when they sent the guardian ad litem to our house prior to that, because the guardian ad litem seen our house. We had a pleasant conversation with her. Everything was great until she said, how's it going to look in our house raising a transgender child? That do we agree to call her by her preferred pronouns and raise her as a boy? And she said, if we don't agree to that, then we're not going to like what she's got to say in court.
Guardian ad litem was taking the stance of, well, she wants to be a boy and we need to advocate for what she wants. Yeah. And again, like our rights as parents to say, no, you can't be a boy. Let's work through this again in more counseling and things like that. Those rights have been totally diminished and taken away.
Yes, yeah. And then it's also coming from the CPS and the attorney they've assigned to her. They come at us like criminalizing our love for our child and our parental, for wanting to maintain our parental rights and to protect our daughter's future, but they're criminalizing that.
Statute, and I don't know if it's in Montana only or across the board with everywhere, but it states that if there are two parents, biological parents, which would be Todd and the birth mother, and you want to take the child away from one set of parents, that you have to place them with their other biological parent if that person is available.
Yeah, and there's no dispute between us and her biological mother. The whole thing with CPS flat out ignoring to even do a house check in Canada, those kind of things, and we don't suspect a lot there. That's.
But our point is that from what I understand, the two agencies don't communicate. So Children's Services in Canada and Children's Services in the United States, they're not agencies that communicate or even have the same policies or anything like that. So to send her somewhere where you haven't even seen the house or anything, how have you investigated that that's a safe place? Yeah,
the whole reason they're doing that, though, is her birth mother is calling her by her preferred pronouns and is doing exactly what the court wants, agreeing to raise her as a boy and all of that. So
saying like they're advocating for her to be able to live as a boy as she wants, and her birth mother is willing to support that when we are not.
Yes.
If you guys want to give comment on this, if you don't want to, but in the original report that I saw from Redux, they reviewed a counseling report that I think that you guys offered describing the relationship between Jennifer and her biological mother and the treatment that her biological mother showed her sibling, that apparently there was a lot of both emotional and physical abuse from her biological mother. And I imagine that plays a part in the concern of the mother getting custody of your daughter, right?
We have no idea what goes on in their home because it's been over 7 years. So we really can't comment on that. We've had communication with them and it was positive. So
before our January 19th court hearing, Todd and I felt that we were absolutely at a loss and we had no avenues and no one was listening to us and no one was helping. So we made a video that we released on YouTube that was about 17 minutes long that just explained our situation and how we had gotten to where we were and how we believed that on that Friday, the 19th, they were going to take custody from us, which did happen. So we released this video and people started to see it and it just has kind of taken off from there.
Yes, and some of the people that commented on it were actual lawmakers in Montana that said, hey, they're not following the laws we passed. They're doing this backward, right in the comments on the video. And we did not use our daughter's name in the video whatsoever. There was nothing inappropriate in any way. So
if there's more hearings coming up and what are the results of those hearings, I don't know. We're never going to stop fighting for her and for what we think is right. And the system has destroyed our family unit the way that it was. There'll never be, our unit will never be whole or never be right again. So we feel like the only choice that we have at this point is to get the word out so that this doesn't happen to another family. I mean, in Montana, you think you're safe. You think that there's certain things that go on out there that you're kind of in a bubble and safe. And that's not what happened. We could even point to the governor, I believe, released a tweet on our story. Yeah. And I call it word soup. It doesn't really say anything. I would say I don't think CPS is there to help you and your child. They're not. They walked into a house where there was clearly no abuse, clearly a loving home, and they took things and they twisted it. So I would be very careful, know your rights, get legal representation as soon as possible. And don't stop asking questions. Don't stop telling people if you're not happy about something. By being silent, like if you're not happy about something and then you're quiet about it, you're teaching them that behavior is okay when it's not. We understand, like I said, our unit is destroyed, but we can only hope now that by getting the word out that this will help other parents, and you'll know what to look out for and be aware of when things that we have hindsight right now, but it's not helping. So we don't have to use public defenders who are a part of the system and in bed with CPS. We're not trying to throw our public defenders under the bus, but we don't feel that we've been listened to and we've been helped in any way that benefits our family. So again, we have a Give, Send, Go where we're trying to hire another lawyer to take our case and to help us fight for our daughter.